Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation today. As you may already know, the Indigenous population here in Canada is one that lives throughout constant marginalization and oppression. Today I'm here to talk to you about the serious crisis regarding the conditions of the water being supplied to the Indigenous communities here in Canada, if they're even supplied any water at all. Majority of the Canadian population is unaware of the conditions Indigenous people face here in Canada. There are around 1,700 water advisories issued in Canada, not including the ones issued to Indigenous communities. Water advisories issued to Indigenous communities are classified as drinking water advisories. This means that the water running to the homes, businesses, and schools is unsafe to consume and even use at all sometimes. These differ from non-Indigenous water advisories because those water advisories rarely ever affect its community. In 2015 alone, there were 138 drinking water advisories in 94 Indigenous communities, not including British Columbia. As of August 2018, there were 75 long-term drinking water advisories here in Canada, all affecting Indigenous communities. Many individuals watching this have not gone more than a few days without clean drinking water, if they've gone camping. If not, many of you haven't gone without clean drinking water for more than a few hours, at least without being able to access it. Many families have lived like this and in these conditions for a majority of their lives. Here's a short video to help show you the conditions many Indigenous families face on a daily basis.
The inequity around the water quality in our community is huge. There's all kinds of issues that each one of the wells and each one of our families and each one of our communities is dealing with continually.
The water is very bad. We don't consume it at all. I have a 3-year-old right up to a 13-year-old, 5 girls in total who have been raised without good clean water.
Our whole lives we have been under a boil water advisory. Our fountains over at the school are all covered up because we can't drink from them anymore.
We've been on the bottled water for 19 years now, and a lot of our kids grew up on that. My son Adam, he's 14 years old now, but he's had eczema since he's been an infant. These are some of the scars he has from that eczema on his, he's infected again. When I first started taking him to the doctor, they would give him all kinds of medication, and I would continually bathe him in that water. But after a while, I noticed that he was getting infections all the time, and I would continually be at the doctor's office. And finally, one day when I took him in, he asked me, he said, is your water treated at home? And I said, no. And I told him, I said that our water comes directly from the lake, I said, into our homes, and that we don't have a treatment plant. He said, there's your problem. He said, it's your water. He said, that's why your boy keeps getting these infections.
This is how we turn on and off our water. This is what me and my children bathe in. We started getting water jugs, you know, the Culligan jugs. I'm not sure how much they weigh. They put them outside. We used to get like between 10 to 20, and we had to carry these jugs. Well, I had to because I'm a single mother. I started carrying the jugs up the stairs. All of a sudden I got like a hot flash, and so I went to the bathroom. I noticed blood, and I'm like, oh my God. I go, oh please, like I hope I'm not having a miscarriage, right? I had a tear in my placenta.
Our people have worked and lived in harmony with the Great Lakes forever. Water is all around us. Water sustains us. Our elders, our culture, our knowledge keepers talk about the importance of water at all of our ceremonies. We do not deserve a substandard quality of life. Our people do not deserve a substandard quality of life.
Why should a child or a mother, anybody, period, have to struggle for a nice, clean glass of water?
My hope for my community, my dream for my community and my grandchildren is for them to have clean water.
So why is this happening? The mistreatment and neglect felt by Indigenous people here in Canada is traced back to colonization. Since the beginning, Indigenous people have been treated as if they were a lower class population than the rest. However, legally this can be traced back to the British North American Act of 1867. After the British North American Act was created, it gave the government the power to control Indigenous peoples and the land that would be reserved for them. It was clear that the Indigenous population was one that needed to be dealt with, according to the government. In 1876, the Indian Act was created as a legislation that would control almost every aspect of an Indigenous person's life in Canada. The Indian Act was in no way considered fair and was created as a means to control the Indigenous population. Some even consider this legislation a form of cultural genocide. So who controls the water being provided to the Indigenous communities? Under Section 91 of the Canadian Constitution, it clearly states that all Indigenous peoples and their land are under the control of the federal government. This includes the water supplied to them. Whereas the water being supplied to non-Indigenous land is controlled by the provincial government. In Canada, Health Canada, a federal agency, is responsible for creating the water guidelines for clean and safe drinking water. But ultimately, it is the provincial government's duty to ensure clean and safe water is being provided, but not to Indigenous people, meaning less attention is being given to the water being provided to Indigenous communities. The Canadian Water Act of 1985 clearly states that the provincial government controls its own water supply. Although it may seem to apply to all Canadians, the Canadian Constitution states that it controls all Indigenous people and their land, meaning the Canadian Water Act is not applied to Canadian Indigenous population. All of this only matters, though, if the community even has running water at all. 10% of Indigenous communities in Canada have no running water to the community. There are uncountable amount of problems regarding why Indigenous communities have limited access to water, but some of the main reasons are listed below. One of the main reasons is that there are no laws or regulations governing water supplies to Indigenous communities, unlike non-Indigenous communities. In 2010, the Safe Water for First Nations Act, or Bill S-11, was introduced, but was denied. Bill S-18 was passed in 2013 instead. The new bill makes no improvements to what it states it would do, which is provide clean and safe water to the Indigenous population. The water crisis in Canada faced by the Indigenous population has seen no improvements. The Liberal government had promised to solve the drinking crisis by 2021. As of December 2017, 32 long-term advisories had been lifted, some just changing to cleaner statuses, but still lifted. However, 22 new ones were added. The government still has 67 long-term advisories to fix. Drinking water is critical to survival, and with Canada being one of the largest holders of fresh water, it is unethical and utterly shocking that individuals living in Canada even here in Ontario, don't have access to clean and safe drinking water.